Erev Shabbos. We look forward to everyone wearing bow ties to shul this Shabbat. The big deal with bow ties has to do with the rainbow that appears in this week's Parsha near the end. It's in the fifth Aliyah, page 42 and 43 in your Chumash. And in verse 13 says, I have set my rainbow in the cloud. It shall be a sign of the covenant between me and the earth. Eskashti. Nasati ba'anan v'haisa la'ois bris beini uvein haaretz keshet kashti, my keshet, my rainbow is the operative word here. And keshet, by the way, is also the first letters of the words Kehilat Sha'arei Torah. So hence the rainbow in our logo. At the beginning of the Portia, we learn about the lowly state of humankind. In fact, it says the world was filled with Hamas, which the Art Scroll translates as robbery. So God decided to reset humankind using Noah and his family as the starter pack for a new and improved humankind. Everything else was destroyed. Noah, the fam, and the animals preserved on the ark, and we begin anew. So people after that must have wondered, is this going to happen every couple hundred years? God said, no. Now you know that I can do it, and I promise that I won't. But every time you see a rainbow, know that I'm thinking of doing it, and I'm sticking to my promise not to do it. Midrash Rabbah lists a few generations where a rainbow was not seen in that generation. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai's generation, the generation of the men of the Great Assembly, Anshe Knesset Hagadola. So in those historical moments, people evidently behaved so righteously that it never arose in God's thought that we were not worthy. In other times, when we do see rainbows, they're beautiful, but we should get the message. We can do better. Now, how are we supposed to know what to do? The question comes up in the work of Rabbi Mordechai Yosef Leiner, the Ishbitzer Rebbe, in his commentary called Mei HaShiloach, the waters of Shiloach. Shiloach is an ancient part of Jerusalem, has a pool of water or a spring next to Hezekiah's tunnel. If you ever took that tour where you walk through the stone tunnel with water up to your knees into the old city. So he writes in his commentary that cultures seem forever to celebrate and to prize youth. In our days, they have whole stores dedicated to selling creams and lotions and potions that are supposed to make you look younger, not to mention all the cosmetic surgeries people have done. But why? To recapture youth. Youth is a time of strength and stamina and courage, optimism, and mental acuity. All of those things we use to accomplish great and meaningful things. What we don't talk about so much is how in the days of our youth we did not have as much wisdom or insight or self-awareness or experience to avoid making huge, costly mistakes. You see it all the time. Someone young comes to a fork in the road and they take it. They're moving so fast, they don't even give themselves a chance to stop and deliberate. Sometimes it's very hard to go back and undo a poor choice. The Ishbitzer says the same thing that goes for people in our individual lives also holds true for humankind. When we were young and bold and swift and moving very fast in our development, we made some big mistakes. Hopefully, we've learned from that as a human race. These mistakes were very costly. They put us on the wrong track. God helped us with one reset, but the rest of the corrections are up to us now. In our Parsha this week, we have two incidents bookending the action. The generation of Noah, called the generation of the flood, Dor HaMabul, and at the very end of the portion, the generation that built the tower, trying to reach up to heaven. That era is called Dor HaFlaga, the generation of dispersion, for what ultimately happened to them. In the days of our youth as a human race, we figured, well, whatever you can get away with, go for it. The Midrashim are full of all kinds of accounts of the immorality amongst people that led to the generation of the flood, the Dor HaMabul. We were so awful to one another that, in God's view, we forfeited our right to continue to endure. Contrast that with the generation that built the tower at the end of the Parsha. It's often called the Tower of Bavel, not because it was in Babylon so much, but because God mixed up, Balal is the Hebrew word, mixed up all the languages. See, by this point, people had two ideas. One was cooperation, The notion that by working together as a group, we could accomplish more than as a bunch of individuals working alone. And we also developed some technology. We figured out how to make bricks. With bricks, you can build higher than a tent or a mud hut. Of course, later on, parking becomes a problem, but that's much later in human history. So that generation said, let's make bricks and let's cooperate to build a tower up to the heavens. Sounds good. That's a productive capitalist society. What's the problem? Is that they said, Naase lanu shem. Let's make a name for ourselves. We'll make ourselves famous. Maybe we'll even reach the heavens and we'll be like gods. See, if they would have had the common sense that even Cain and Abel had, that Noah certainly had, which is to show a little gratitude, a little recognition of their creator, to bring God a little offering, maybe say thank you, that would have been a different story. But they didn't. They only thought about themselves. That's atheism. That's blasphemy. Bad stuff. So don't you think they would have been as severely punished for that as the generation of the flood, if not even more? Well, first of all, there was already a promise made not to destroy the world a second time. That's point number one. And number two, the just deserts from this incident was only to confuse the languages, mix up the people. So it would be another level of challenge for the people to collaborate at this level without some preparation beforehand. So we see that collaboration is really like anything else. It's a neutral thing. It can be used for good, but it could also be used for self-aggrandizement, for violence against others, or even idolatry. Collaboration to better the lot of humankind, whether on a small or a large scale, that is a wonderful thing. Now that humankind is not so much in our youth any longer, we don't make such colossal mistakes, although new ones may be brewing on the horizon, remains to be seen. The hope is that now we have maturity, insight, self knowledge, and wisdom to collaborate and cooperate for good purposes, to make the world a safer, richer, and a holier place, rather than just a free for all, where everyone just takes for themselves without thinking of what it means for other people. Like a glacier, we probably move a step backward for every 2 steps forward. But as we begin this new cycle of Torah reading and Torah study, we will push ourselves to look for new insights, to motivate and educate us, to do the ongoing work of the Jewish people, to bring light into this world. May God truly bless all our efforts with success and all in good health. A good Shabbos.